welcome to Muse Stories Return on Investment Tales from the Arts. I'm your host, Tracy Durson, and I am so excited to have a wonderful, lovely, amazing human here with me today, Maricruz Menchero, who I'm going to have introduce herself in just a moment. But I'm just grateful to kick off another episode and to tell this incredible story that we're about to hear. So, hi, Maricruz.
Hi, Tracy. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me here. My name is Maricruz Menchero. I feel like I'm slating for a self-tape. I'm based in New York City. I'm originally from California. No, I'm really excited about what you're doing here, Tracy, and I'm so excited to share my story, and hopefully it resonates with some people and inspires them.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm so excited to have you here as a guest. And we know each other actually in a few different capacities now, which is exciting. We can chat about in a little bit if we want. As we know, these are return on investment stories about your journey because your story is a little bit unique. Where did you start? What was your undergraduate college search process like?
Yeah, I think I have to start a little bit further back. So, when I was growing up, I was known as La Artista by my family. So, La Artista in English translates to the artist. I always loved drawing and painting. I was always in choirs and just loved any form of artistic expression. I grew up creating forts from cushions and from sofas and just really loved just building and creating in general. And so when I was in high school and it came down to choosing a major, I knew I wanted to go into a creative field, but I wasn't sure exactly what. And at that point in time, my family had just gone through the process of creating our first house from scratch, architect and having an idea and seeing it come to life. And so that was a process that I found really exciting. And so since I love drawing and I really loved math, I thought, well, I'll go into architecture. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do architecture or graphic design, but the architecture programs were a little bit trickier to get into. So I figured I'll apply to those programs. And then if I don't like it, I'll switch into graphic design. But yeah, so I studied architecture. I ended up sticking with it. And it opened up a lot of really great avenues for me. It was a challenging major, I have to say, because we spent so much time in the studio. I feel
Hmm.
like something with the arts, and not just architecture, but any sort of like artistic endeavor is like you're never really finished. You can
Hmm.
always keep going and improving and improving. And so just learning that you have like a certain time frame to design something or you have a certain deadline for a certain project, like it really caps that design process and really forces you to manage your time and just to focus on what you can do within the time you have allotted. So anyway, a lot of great experiences. Got to travel a lot thanks to architecture. My third year was actually spent entirely in Rome.
Wow.
So all my professors were based in Italy, and so that was a really wonderful experience, just living abroad for a year and just traveling in general. Yeah, so I studied architecture, and then after graduating, I decided to move back to Texas for a year. I studied at Notre Dame, and it was very close to Chicago, so I had 4 years of very heavy winters, a lot of snow, a lot of cold, and I was born in California, grew up in Texas, so I'm used to warmer weather,
Hmm.
and, so I was really looking forward just to being warm and being closer to family. So after graduation, I worked for a high-end residential company in Dallas for a year. And even though I enjoyed where I was working and I was learning so much, I felt like something was missing. I feel like after graduation, at least for me, it always feels like a really big transition, from being in a setting where you're with your friends 24/7 to being on your own and just having to find your own community. Especially in
Hmm.
Dallas, like, there was a couple people from my university that moved there, but not that many, so it kind of felt like starting from scratch,
Hmm.
and yeah, so it was during a period of time where I felt like I hadn't found my people yet, and I saw an audition notice for Les Mis, which is one of my favorite musicals of all times, and I said, "I don't care if they cast me as, like, a tree or, like, a street urchin, like, I have to be a part of this musical." It was put on by a community college local to Plano, Texas, so, like, fairly close to where I lived. And so I auditioned and, I got cast, which was really
Oh.
exciting, and I don't know, just once I started going to rehearsals and just like being on stage and performing, I just felt at home and I felt very excited and just very passionate about what I was doing. And so that kind of planted a seed for me. I'd done
Mm,
musical theater growing up since maybe about like fifth or sixth grade, choirs even before. For me, it had always been a hobby.
mm,
There's no one really in my family who had ever thought to pursue the arts, and so it was always just a thing I loved to do, but
mm.
that experience really planted the seed of maybe this is something that you can pursue professionally or at least just get training in and see if, see if you like it.
Yeah.
And so after that experience, because of that experience, that year I decided to apply to different acting programs across the US. So it was really funny how it all played out because at this point I think the admissions processes had already started
Mm,
for school programs for conservatories. And so I ended up flying out. I think they had like you know more about this than I do, Tracy, in terms of like admissions, but I feel like most programs audition in like the major cities and then
mhm,
locally wherever that program is located. And so I auditioned in the last possible city, which that year it was San Francisco.
huh.
It was just a whole new world for me. Like, what are like monologues? How do I pick monologues? And I do want to say I wasn't auditioning for musical theater programs. I was just auditioning for straight theater programs. And so there's a lot of learning for me in terms of like, oh, finding a play and like choosing a monologue and then rehearsing a monologue and then what places do I apply to and just admissions for performing arts schools. They're so different to like what I'd gone through previously with architecture.
Mhm,
With
mhm.
architecture, it was like creating a visual portfolio and writing essays, and with a lot of these acting programs, it was like monologues, and I think certain places also ask for an interview, but not all places. It was a really, really big learning curve for me, and, ended up auditioning at several places that year. I have a really fun story of how I ended up where I ended up. I was actually auditioning. I don't remember if I had auditioned for like Yale or for like what MFA program I'd auditioned for, but I was on a floor and had just done my audition, like needed to use the restroom. But the restrooms on the floor where I were on, they were out of service. And so I ended up having to go to the floor above. And I go upstairs and I see this man sitting behind the desk. And I go up to him, I'm like, "Hey, like, do you know where the restrooms are?" He's like, "Yeah, they're back there, but when you're done, you should audition for our program." I was like, "Okay, like, sounds great." They didn't charge like a lot of times when you audition, you have to pay a certain fee. And
Mhm.
for this program, they said, "Well, you're here, like, we'll just like take you, you don't have to pay anything." And I ended up auditioning for Stella Adler, got accepted to that program, and that's the program where I ended up going to. So Stella Adler, and something that really appealed to me about their program is that they offered a 2-year evening conservatory. And so at that point in time, I just felt like it was such a great option because it felt like I'd be dipping my toes in the performing arts, but I still had the opportunity to work during the day.
Mhm.
Just felt like a really good way for me to venture into training. I ended up moving to New York City and I led a double life for 2 years. So from 9 in the morning to 6 PM, I would be working full time as an architect. And then I literally had to run to studio
Gosh.
because sometimes I wouldn't get out of work until like 6:15, but classes started at 6:35. If you
Oh my
were
gosh.
I mean, it was hilarious because all my friends would be there, all my classmates would be seated, and then Maricruz running and like 10 seconds before class started, I'd be running in. So it was challenging, but it was it's a very busy time in my life, but it was so
Mhm.
fulfilling and it was so fun. And I was just immersed in community in my work setting and then also at Stella Adler. So it was a really, really fun time. And then I'm getting to how you and I know each other.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
of the story. But yeah, after those 2 years, had a wonderful experience, met a really fun group of people, but I felt like I'd been juggling 2 things for a really long time, and so it came to the point where I was like, "Okay, if I wanna go into acting and try this professionally, like, I really have to go full in." But I didn't feel like those 2 years were enough for me, like, I
Mhm.
really was yearning for more training, I was yearning to be in an environment where I could just focus on acting 24/7. And so at that point, I thought, okay, I think I'm ready for grad school at this point. Now I have a basis versus that last time where I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. I felt a little bit more prepared to take that next step. And so I applied to uh, actually not as many programs. I was very selective with the programs I applied to. And DePaul was one of those programs that I applied to. And I just have to say, like, the admissions process and the audition process for DePaul was so enjoyable. I feel like for a lot of schools, like a lot of drama programs get like bad reps of like being super competitive or super cutthroat and really kind places to be in. Maybe things have changed, like, it's been a while, but
Mm-hmm.
something that I loved about DePaul's audition process was that it wasn't only an audition, like, you went in, you did your monologues, but then there was an interview. I think that that's why one reason why I was so drawn to Stella Adler and then also to DePaul is because they not only see you as an actor, but they see you as a human being. Things go hand in hand, right? Like, I think Stella has a saying that says, like, "You can't improve as an actor if you don't improve as a human being," right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so I felt really seen, and not only for what I brought to the table, but the potential of what I could bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And then besides the interview and the audition, there was also a workshop, which I really, really enjoyed. I think it was a movement workshop. So we got to work
Yes.
with one of the instructors, and it was just overall like such a joyous experience. And I really loved the people that were auditioning me, and it just felt like a good fit. But I
Mm-hmm.
do remember that in the admissions process, it took a little bit longer to hear back from DePaul. Like, I was hearing back
Mm-hmm.
from all the other schools, and I hadn't heard back from DePaul, so I was like, "Oh, I didn't get in." Like, you know what? Maybe it's just not meant to be. Because at that point for me, I told myself, I'm gonna apply for different grad school programs. If I
Mm-hmm.
get it, that's a sign for me that this is my path and this is my next step, and if I don't
Yeah.
get it, then I'm gonna have to reevaluate.
Sure.
So I'd gotten into a couple programs, but I just wasn't really excited about them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was at the point where I was like, maybe I just don't go to grad school. And then I don't remember if it was you, Tracy, or who called me to give me the good news, but I was just beyond, like beyond excited. And I just knew the moment I got the news, like this was the place for me.
Oh.
And so everyone, this is how Tracy and I met at DePaul University, and that's how our paths crossed.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I ended up accepting my place at DePaul and spent 4 years. Yes. What, 4 years, right?
Three,
3 years.
right?
3 years.
Yes, three
Yeah.
years.
3 years studying there. And yeah, that's why I ended up studying the performing arts.
There's so many details I want to pull out of your story, which thank you for sharing that. It's so amazing. And, people, every single person that I interview in this series, has such a unique journey to where they are today, right? And, what I think is so important at the foundation is that you've always been a lover of the arts, right? You were involved in various ways in your youth. And then going into architecture, you have to have a very like technical mind. And
Yeah.
it's also a lot of creativity, right? And, a lot of people don't know this, but one of my early career jobs, I was an academic advisor and I advised architecture students
No
and I
way!
did. And so it
And
was so fascinating because it would always be a joke, not a joke. Like, did you sleep this week? Like, how many
like,
all-nighters do
I have
you keep?
more stories.
Yes. People would keep their sleeping bags and pillows in their lockers near the studio because sometimes they'd have to work and sleep for a couple hours and work. And it is for people who are unfamiliar with architecture, and as someone who didn't work in the field but advised people, it is no joke. And it sets you up with an insane work ethic and it's an amazing foundation, but it is not for the weak of heart.
I mean, I have crazy stories of like I had a butterfly chair in studio, and
Hmm.
the amount of naps that were taken in that chair was
Yeah.
insane. I was also very lucky because my dorm room was 10 steps away from studio. And so anytime I had to, take a nap or anytime I just wanted to rest and reset, I would just escape
Hmm.
my dorm room. But that wasn't true for a lot of people. Like some people had to walk 30 minutes to their dorm room. So the amount of people and friends that stayed in my dorm room just to take a quick nap,
Yes,
yeah, it was
I believe it.
crazy. But I feel like there's nothing like like hanging out with your friends when you're sleep deprived.
Yeah.
We had a lot of really fun and funny moments,
Mhm.
some memories that I'm always gonna carry with me, but yeah, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. It was very challenging, very, very challenging
Yeah.
degree, but, walked away with great experiences for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it set you up with an incredibly strong work ethic. And,
Yes.
I don't doubt at all that you've always been a person who's very persistent, but that persistence really had set you up for the rest of the story that you told. I love that so much that you were like, I want to be in Les Mis. I'm just going to audition. But I mean, I hope people are really taking in that detail, right? Because yes, there is so much value in training within the performing arts. And also, I've seen it over and over again in my experience. Like people can walk in with that raw talent and strong passion and then end up somehow involved within the performing arts, right? And then, as you spoke about, like you continue to focus on your training and refine what you were learning. And that's all extremely important. And how your story will continue as we keep talking. But I just love so much that you're like, and I'm going to try this next thing, and I'm going to try this next thing, and I'm going to audition for grad schools because why not? Like it just takes a really amazing like spirit of adventure to be someone who can do that. So I just respect that so much, and I really hope people are taking in this story. It's like, oh man, if Maricruz could do this, why can't I? Yeah.
Big thing for me has always been to follow my curiosity.
Hmm.
We have a limited time here on Earth, and so something one of my friends actually who studied architecture with me, something that we always tell each other is like, just do it for the plot twist, right? Like,
Mm,
if it doesn't work out, like, then you at least tried it, right? And then if
yeah.
you don't like what you're doing, you can pivot and do something else. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people go into university settings thinking, oh, I have to choose a thing I'm going to do forever and ever. And
Hmm.
that's it, and I have to stay glued to that thing. I even see in the way like, how my parents have approached their jobs, like, in the past, like, you found a job and you just stayed there for 20, 30 years. But now there's just a different type of current, like,
Hmm.
you go to a job, you're there for a couple years, you move elsewhere, have a different experience. Like, I think just the philosophy of working has changed compared to how it was, when our parents were younger or how our grandparents were younger. So, yeah,
Yes.
so for me, it's always been about like following the sparks and following the whispers, as I like to call them, or like
Hmm.
the signs, like the fact that I saw the audition notice for Les Mis, like it
Right.
could have been like for any other musical, but the fact that it
Hmm.
was for Les Mis was very significant to me. When I spent that year abroad in Rome, my friend, her name's Christine, the one that says, "Oh, let's just do it for the plot twist." Like we're
Yeah.
both huge fans of Les Mis, and so sometimes we would just play. I think it's the 20th anniversary concert of Les Mis featuring Alfie Boe
Okay.
that we would like play over and over again in studio when we were in Rome. So so funny enough, there is like ties to architecture, but there is also ties to like something beyond architecture in
Hmm.
like Les Mis and pursuing that opportunity. So it's funny how that's the way it happened. But if it hadn't been for that show in particular, maybe I would be doing something completely different right now.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and that's, I've received this advice from a coach that I have worked with in my past, and she would just continue to tell me the universe is on your side. You just have to pay
Yeah.
attention. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
super easy. You could have walked right past that poster or posting and never paid any heed to it, right? And you didn't. And I think that was the moment where the universe was showing up for you to be like, this might be a moment for that plot twist. And I love
Yeah.
that. I'm going to pull that out for that quote. I love that so
Do it for the
much.
plot twist.
Do it for the plot twist. It's amazing. I love that so much. So, okay. So we know you went to grad school and you earned your MFA in acting, which is incredible. I think I want to focus your story on if there's anything that you took away from grad school
Sure.
that you feel would be valuable or really feed into the theme of the return on investment. But then I also really want to jump into like, what have you been doing since? Because I think it's
Yeah.
such a fun story to share in all of this.
I think that's such a great question, Tracy, and I think going into grad school was challenging for me at first because my background was so different, and in my cohort there's a lot of people who were like actors from day 1. And so it was being in an environment that was new to me and learning that I was worthy of being in that space and that just because my journey looked different, it didn't mean that I wasn't deserving of being there. So I think for the first couple of years, it was just a lot of learning in terms of, like, realizing, "Oh, no, like, I was chosen." It was like, admissions is a very competitive process, and, like, the fact that I was chosen, like, again, like, I'm really big into signs and, like, following opportunities that God and the universe opens up for you, and so I was like, "No, I'm meant to be here." Like, I was chosen for this program. And so at the beginning, I had this notion of like, "Oh, I have to be, like, the greatest actor." But one of my biggest takeaways from acting school is, like, if you pursue being great, you're not gonna be the artist and the actor that you wanna be, like so for me, the switch was like, I'm not gonna pursue greatness, I'm just gonna pursue truth, and I'm gonna play and have fun. And so a lot of, like, my learnings in school was, like, how can I reframe what I'm doing so it becomes about enjoying the process versus about, like, having to achieve a certain result or, I don't know, be, like, great. Um, and as I said, it's just a reframe. And so that was a really big lesson for me in grad school, knowing that I was deserving of the space and just enjoying the process and knowing that all our journeys are completely different and we learn things at different times and we all
Mhm.
have different experiences that we bring to the table. But I think one of the biggest things that I loved about grad school and in general, what I've taken away from all my experiences is just the experience itself and the people that I met.
Mhm.
Connections have been just, like, life-changing, and I don't necessarily mean, like, connections that are gonna take you to the next level, like, in terms of,
Sure.
like, professional connections, which, like, yes, that exists as well, but for me, it's about, like, the people I've met. So,
Yeah.
like, when I went to Stella Adler, the cool thing about Stella Adler is it just drew people from all over the world. And so, like, right now, I'm living with a girl that I met in that program, and she's from Holland. And
Wow.
one of my really good friends, Hilda, who you know as well, Tracy, like, I
Mhm.
met her there too. She's from Mexico City. And I met people from, like, Venezuela, from Belgium, from France, from Turkey, oh, from England, from all over the
Mhm.
world. And I feel like it really expanded my worldview in terms of what it's like to interact with different people and
Mhm.
to get to know people that have different beliefs than you maybe have or different customs and different values and why it's important actually to interact with just, different people
Mhm.
like you.
Yeah.
So connections was a really big takeaway for me at Stella Adler, but also at DePaul, just like meeting different groups of people. And yeah, to this day, some of the people that I met in that program continue to be some of my best friends and collaborators too.
Mhm. Mhm.
And something in particular that I really loved about my program at DePaul is we had so much access to people in the Chicago community,
Mhm.
working actors and not just actors, but like producers and like directors and like casting agents that we met thanks to that program. So there's
Mhm.
that benefit of like, yes, like, you make personal connections and then as I said, you also make those professional connections as well.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, you're paying for an experience and you're paying to learn. I don't regret investing in learning.
Yeah.
There's always something to walk away with, and whether it's something that you read in a book or something that happens in the classroom setting, it's experiences, memories, and learnings. And so, yeah, I really value, investing in those types of programs because 'cause I've walked away with a lot.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. And especially for, let's just even say a high school student about to embark on this type of journey, it's really hard to understand what you're going to take away from this experience because it's just the first time that people have been in this type of setting. And that continues to show up for you throughout your life. I have noticed time and again in these conversations, the themes of connections are huge. And the community that you build through the arts is, I think, uniquely supportive because where it can be competitive, it's also very much an ensemble from a global perspective because you all need each other to be able to create art. And so I think it's just very interesting to hear how those show up and manifest and how the connections sort of stay, I don't know, in alignment with each other in different times when you might need them. There's something very profound about connections that are made through the arts. So I
There.
appreciate you highlighting that.
And there's also a lot of skills that you take away from those types of settings, and
Mhm.
I feel like my training is not just like, I didn't just train at Stella Adler, I didn't just train at DePaul, like, I think as an artist, and at least the type of artist I wanna be, like, I always wanna continue learning, like, I've there's a hunger that will always live in me in terms of, like, learning more, whether it be about the arts or about business or about marketing and sales, like, I just love learning, and something that I've learned in being in artistic spaces and getting the training that I did at DePaul and even beyond is just greater awareness for myself, of
Mhm.
myself and of the world around me. You know, we did a lot of exercises in school and even beyond school where you just like tune into your senses and tune into what's going on around you or what's going on within your body. Yeah, I think I've just been awakened to the like million complexities of life because I've been almost forced to slow down. We live in a very fast world, and I live in a very fast I live right now I'm based in New York. Just the constant reminder to slow down and what it means to have awareness of yourself, of other individuals, of the greater world around you. I feel like that's a skill that I've walked away with. Also in terms of just like what it means to own your space and to speak up in a room
Mhm.
even when I was working in architecture firms and I had to give presentations or beyond that where I've had to interview, whether it be in Zoom or in person, I feel like there's a lot of skills that you can transfer to different settings. And I just
Mhm.
feel like everybody should study acting quite honestly, because you just learn so much about yourself. You learn about history, you learn about so many different cultures and peoples. And yeah, I think you develop greater empathy for different
Mhm.
it's just so important in today's world. And so, yeah, I just think even if you're not gonna pursue the arts like 100%, like full
Mhm.
I think it's really valuable just to get a taste and
Yeah.
sign up for an acting class. You never know.
Yeah. I love it. That's amazing. Again, I hear over and over in these interviews that transferable skills are huge and the
Oh, yeah.
empathy that you really, dive into and can learn more about it yourself and how you can apply that to the world. Hence why I love to do to keep telling these stories because they have similar themes with all the different
Yeah.
twists in them. So I think that's a really good lead into what you're doing now. Share with the world all of the excitement.
So I talked about getting to DePaul, and then I'll talk a little bit about after DePaul. So I graduated in 2020 during the
Yay.
pandemic. So unfortunately, uh, I graduated from home. We found out on a Wednesday that our showcase was canceled, and we were flying out that Friday to New York. And so instead of flying to New York, I decided just to fly home. I think at that time, like, Chicago was still in the, like, 30s or 40s, and I was like, "I'm tired. I'm gonna go home to Texas, and we're gonna be in the 60s and 70s, and it's gonna be
Yep.
wonderful for 2 weeks, and then I'll come back." But yeah, so spent some time at home, and then we actually did have a virtual showcase, and from that virtual showcase, I signed with a manager in New York. So that's what brought me back to New York. And yeah, I was here in New York, and because of my background in architecture, I ended up interviewing and getting offered a position at a high-end hotel here in the city.
Mhm.
I worked with the design department of the hotel, and my official role was executive and personal assistant to the creative director and co-owner of the hotel. So I
Okay.
like to tell people like it kind of felt like I was Andy, so like Anne Hathaway in The Devil
Huh.
Wears Prada, but I was working for a kind Meryl Streep. It was like very
Okay.
paced, a lot of activities, a lot of events, a lot of things happening, but a kind Meryl Streep. And yeah, so that again, like, I feel like something that you always see in different, like, actors' journeys or artist journeys, and in particular in mine, is, like, that juggle.
Mhm.
So for a time, I was juggling working full-time at the hotel and then auditioning in the mornings or in the evenings. And during that period of time, I really focused in a lot on voiceover, Spanish and English voiceover. Those were the big opportunities that were coming my way, and then also, on-camera commercials as well. But it just came to after about 3.5 years, it came to the point where I noticed, "Okay, I've been doing this juggle for a really long time, and I just feel like I've built up enough of an emergency fund that I can go off and step away, and just fully focus on my own thing." Because for me like, I'm not just interested in pursuing a creative career, but really in creating a creative life for myself so that everything that I do is fulfilling and everything I do is just nurturing to like my artistic and creative soul. And so even though I'm still very much auditioning and I'm in the process of finding theatrical rep at the moment, something that I'm equally as passionate about and that you know about, Tracy, is I am creating my own business. I feel very, very much called at this moment to foster community spaces for creatives because the creative journey can be very, very lonely at times. And I feel like there's so much power and strength and support that can happen if we move together in a group. I started something last year called Creative Circles, which Tracy was a member of. So excited to connect with her in that setting. And essentially what I was proposing is like if you're a creative that's moving towards a dream, or if you have a certain project in mind, but you want to move together in a group and be in a supportive space, like join this group so that we can leverage each other's experiences and skill sets to support each other's individual journeys, but also just have a space where we can speak to what it means to be a creative, or what do we do when we feel self doubt, and how do you push forward, and I just found a lot of fulfillment in that, and just bringing together different circles of people, different circles of creatives, right? Not just actors, but like
Mhm.
entrepreneurs and playwrights and a speaker and actors, of course, but just from all different fields. I always tell people we're all creatives. Like, you are creative in the sense that you choose what you're going to wear every day. You choose what you're going to eat every day, right? Like, these are choices that you make about your life. You're crafting your life. And so we're all creatives at heart, but sometimes we just need that reminder. Like, you don't have to come from a certain profession in order to associate with that term. And so yeah,
Mhm.
so that's a really big thing that I started end of last year and that I'm continuing to develop, again, just centered around that idea of like community and moving together and getting people unstuck, right? You like
Mhm.
movement is what frees you and gets you unstuck, and action and being in a process you can really enjoy. So focusing on that. And then as I shared with you, Tracy, I'm continuing to audition. Had
Mhm.
a really fun opportunity end of last year as well, where yeah, I got cast in my first on-camera commercial that filmed on location. It took me to Colombia, which again just opened me up to a world of creatives and a really fun experience exploring a like country I'd never been to, and
Mhm.
yeah, just a really fun opportunity. So yeah, still pursuing the acting and the auditions, but also building something for myself.
Yeah. No, it's so fun to hear all of that. And selfishly, as Maricruz just said, like I got to be a participant in your really inaugural group of the
Yeah.
circles. And I took so much joy from it. And I will say in this podcast, because it's very relevant, that the podcast is a result of me being a member of this group. I know, so exciting. And so I'm so grateful because to exactly what you said, like the creative journey, I think can be lonely sometimes. And as we alluded to earlier, it's a huge, robust community of people. So then, combining, I guess, powers, it's like superpowers, it just gives a space where I think people feel it helps with confidence and just support and idea sharing. And I know that just the connections that I made through the group, I'm so grateful for. One, because now I feel like I have new friends all over the world.
Yeah.
And two, I
It's
have
always
just
fun.
I've expanded my network of people that I can support and they have supported me. And I mean, I loved it from the moment you posted it on LinkedIn, this idea. But what I want to really also highlight and elevate from what you are doing now and on this next part of your adventure is, you are staying true to your goal to be present as an artist and a creative. You've made this decision to, I'm not going to settle and do these other things. Like, this is how I want my journey to continue to form. There's a lot of power and beauty in saying, like, this is a choice and I'm going to keep moving it forward no matter what. And that can sometimes feel scary and intimidating and also it's so fun, right? Like, it just makes life so much more fun. You're like, I'm doing something because I love it. And I feel like there's really
Yeah, and we're
meaning behind
doing
it.
it for the plot twist, right? Like,
Yes.
just following those whispers and trying new things and see what sticks or what doesn't stick.
Yes.
I always feel like if you have an inkling for something, like, give it a shot. You never know what's gonna blossom from that seed, and so, yeah, 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 and as we've spoken, like, connection is something that's super important to me, like, community historically is something that has always been super important for me, so how can we continue to foster it when we're not in an academic setting and
Mm.
when we are on our own individual journeys? I'm just
Yeah.
super excited that we're here and we're recording a podcast. It feels like such a full circle moment from, the moment I connected with you, Tracy, and, you shared this idea. You wanted to turn this amazing YouTube series into a podcast. And we're like, yes, let's do it. And let's do it together.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really
Oh my
special to be
gosh.
here talking.
Thank you. No, I agree. It's so special you're here, and I'm just so grateful because you were a huge catalyst in this. So I want to end our podcast with a question, no pressure, but I always love to hear from people who are in this journey and you've gone through some of the hard steps of pursuing the education and the plot twists and all of that. But what advice would you give to somebody at any point in their life who might be considering wanting to pursue a path in the creative and performing arts?
Yeah, I think it's really follow those whispers, follow your curiosity, and just learn more. I think something can be really scary when it feels completely unknown to you. So that's why I'm so excited that people like Tracy exist so that they can mentor you and just guide you in the correct direction. At the very least, just give you more information. So I think just finding a mentor in an area where you want to learn more about or an area that you want to pursue, I think is really important. I think there's going to be a lot of people that say no or that try to push you in certain directions because maybe certain opportunities feel a little bit more stable or whatnot. But at the end of the day, I think you have to choose your own hard. Like architecture was really hard,
Yes.
and then even, like, post-graduation, like, in order to become a licensed architect, which, full disclosure, I didn't do,
Mhm.
but you have to meet a certain amount of hours. In the past, you had to present 7 exams. Now I think they've condensed it to 5. Any path is gonna be hard. It's just a different type of hard, so choose your own hard, and I think if you follow what speaks to you and what you're passionate about, you're just gonna blossom no matter what.
Yeah.
You need people that follow their hearts and that pursue their gifts. So I would say, like, if you have any sort of inkling, like, go for it. Like,
Yeah.
you never know where it's going to lead, but just go for it.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's true. If you seek joy and you can embrace being brave, there's so many exciting possibilities out there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's incredible. Well, I just want to thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast today. And one of the reasons it's even happening in the first place, I'm so grateful to you and your endorsement for the work that I'm doing and where these stories will hopefully lead for just introducing new people to this pathway and continuing to enhance all of you who I get to a chance to interview and in your journey and help expose you to other people out there.
And I also want to add, Tracy, like, I just commend you so much in terms of like highlighting different people's stories and different people's journeys because our journeys do look so drastically different. So I feel like if you see someone that has a story or a journey that's similar to yours, it can be a source of expansion, right? Like for me, and I was looking at DePaul. Just as a final note, like,
Yeah.
me and expander was Ann Dowd. She was someone that studied pre-med as an undergrad, and then she pursued her MFA in acting, but her story really resonated with me. Another really cool full circle moment is that Ann Dowd studied at DePaul, and then during my time, we did a fundraiser for the school, and she ended up being the speaker for that event, and I ended up being able to go up to her and, like, express, like, what her story meant to me. So the fact that you're doing this and just sharing people's stories, I think it's very, very significant and very impactful. So just huge kudos to you on what you're doing as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Well, everyone listening, keep your eye out for Maricruz and everything she's bringing to this space in this world. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you.